Hello, fools. Welcome to One Up on Wall Street. This is the show where we at the Motley Fool discuss how you can make money from all of your favorite nerdy things like movies, TV, and gaming. I am joined today by Tim Beyers.
Hey guys.
Show off your shirt. What you got
Today's
today?
The Avengers.
The Avengers.
Today.
Excellent. And Nathan Alderman, say hello.
Howdy. Once again, I have the most boring shirt of anybody here.
I don't know about
but
that.
you have Kermit in the background, so that's a
is
win.
true.
And today, to start off with, we are going to talk about Captain America: The Winter Soldier, like everyone else in America is also talking about. I think the way Nathan put it was that this movie made all the money. If you check your pockets and you don't have any money, it's because Marvel took it from you because of Captain America. And I know Tim, last time we chatted, Tim was going to go see it on opening night. So, NATO, I think I'm going to start with you. It made $100 million just domestically in the opening weekend. Is that true?
A little less, $95 million domestically. Right now, I just checked boxofficemojo.com today, and it's over $100 million domestically in less than a week of release, plus another $200 million internationally, which is already more than the first film grossed internationally in its entire run.
That's amazing.
They're calling it an Avengers bump. Basically, people saw Captain America in the Avengers. They became a much bigger fan. Plus, apparently, the film was also doing really well in China, I guess because the one way you sell a star-spangled all-American blockbuster in China is by having it explicitly question the limits of American overreach and militarism. But yeah, it's a massive, massive hit for Disney. It bodes well for future Avengers movies, but it also makes the Guardians of the Galaxy, I think, an even bigger question mark. I am super looking forward to it, but the question will be, can a Marvel movie that doesn't have an explicit tie-in to the Avengers still make this kind of box office?
Okay. So, Tim, I think, did you go see it like you said you would? And all the reviews I've seen are amazing. So are you going to chime in and say it was also amazing?
It was really good. I really liked it. It's nothing. I'm not going to say it's nothing like the source material, but it's a great departure from it. It's clearly inspired by it, but it isn't a crisp adaptation of the Ed Brubaker, Steve Epting, work that introduced fans to the Winter Soldier. The way I saw it Thursday night, and it was a double feature. I went and saw back-to-back the first Avenger, Captain America, the first Avenger, and then followed by the Winter Soldier.
Oh, that's
and
cool.
That was great. That was really great because, first of all, I forgot how good the first Avenger is, that it's funny, it's well done, it introduces Cap in context, and so when you see in the Winter Soldier his sort of adherence to duty and ideals, and then having those ideals questioned and having that cause a lot of consternation for him, it's all very much in context. So I thought it was a really good continuation. The money is terrific, and to address what NATO said, you're absolutely right. This is clearly an Avengers bump. I won't spoil it, but I will say I think this is maybe the most important movie yet for Marvel's business, and I'm including the Avengers in that, and here's why. Because it tees up the what I would call a long-lasting and really interesting subplot that is not only going to affect future Marvel movies, but it's going to affect Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And then in addition to that, it tees up the reason for new Marvel characters to come into the movies or into the TV show. So it's really big in that sense. It's very epic. So I really like the film. I love it for Marvel's business. Whether or not it causes a lot of trouble for Guardians of the Galaxy, I think it does raise the bar, certainly. But I also think there's so much skepticism still for what Guardians of the Galaxy can do because it's such an unknown property. Like the trailer, I think, killed. But once you get closer to San Diego Comic-Con, there's going to be like, who are these guys again? I don't know anything about them. There's a talking raccoon? What?
That's the only... Yep.
Hey, you've got an Academy Award winner voicing a talking raccoon, and you've got Vin Diesel voicing a talking tree.
That has one line and one line only.
But in multiple different ways.
Right, sure. I mean, so there's going to be... to NATO's point here, there's going to be a lot of skepticism. The bar is high, but I don't think it's as high as it was for this film because there's still this undercurrent of skepticism that Marvel can take something that is entirely unknown and elevate it into an A-list Marvel property. Iron Man had it had some fans, plenty of fans, including me, before it hit the big screen in 2008. I love the Guardians of the Galaxy. I love the comic right now. But if we're being really honest, we should say there just aren't a lot of people that know who these guys are. So it is we'll see how it plays out. But but right now it looks like Marvel can just do no wrong. It's a dangerous place to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was certainly a backlash against Pixar when they released a few movies that would still be great by anybody's standards, but weren't up to Pixar's previous.
Pixar standards, absolutely.
But I would also note that one of the wonderful things about Captain America is that the hero of the movie is basically the token white guy in the cast. All of the other heroes are either African American or ladies. Sadly, there are no African American ladies. That would be even more awesome because I don't think we've ever seen a black female superhero on the silver screen. Maybe Halle Berry and Catwoman, but let's all forget that
let's
movie.
Move on from let's not.
Do we have to remember that actually happened?
No.
But you've got the rare movie that has two different African American heroes who, as I've read elsewhere, have completely different personalities. You have three different awesome female characters who all get to kick ass in their own unique ways. You have so I'm blanking on her name, Scarlett Johansson as the Black Widow, as basically the co-lead of the film, and she and Captain America have a completely platonic and awesome, working relationship with each other. There's, not even the slightest hint of romance there.
Which is awesome.
Yeah, it's terrific.
You know what, though? I'd have to say, and you guys will maybe give me some guff for this, I thought of the three of them, Chris Evans, Scarlett Johansson, and Anthony Mackie, Scarlett Johansson's performance was by far the weakest. And I thought Anthony Mackie destroyed in the film. I thought he was amazing.
Mackie was awesome. He was instantly just this tremendously likable character. Part of that is his performance. Part of that is the way he's written, so that when he's introduced, his dominant trait is compassion, which is so awesome to see in a superhero. This is a guy who he's a hero because he cares about other people, and he's trying to help them any way he can. But I don't know. I liked Johansson's performance. I think Marvel has finally found a way to make her, shall we say, somewhat flat affect into an advantage by having it be played in the service of a super spy who's always very guarded, who's always putting walls up. And in the moments in the film when she lets those walls down, when she's kind of goofing around with Captain America, I thought her performance was very effective.
That may be the only time on the internet that anyone has ever used the word flat to refer to Scarlett Johansson. Something cool has happened today.
No comment.
And yeah, Rick will probably edit that out, and if he doesn't, I'll probably get in trouble for it.
Actually, I think of the three of us, you were the only one of us who could say that and not get in trouble for it.
There you go.
You're welcome. Okay, so our second topic today is going to be the intersection of toys and video games. So we've talked about on this show, World of Warcraft is still a juggernaut, but its subscriber list is dwindling. Call of Duty, the franchise, has not been knocking it out of the park as much as perhaps it used to. But Activision, which owns both of those properties, has been making heaps of cash with something called Skylanders, and I am ashamed to admit I had never heard of them until you guys brought them up as a potential topic. So, Nathan, over to you to explain what they are if there's anyone else out there like me.
So, there are now two big competing systems that combine actual physical toys and video games. Both of them work the same way. You buy a figure at a store, you plug it into a little docking station that is hooked up to your video game console, and the little figure unlocks new content and new characters in the video games you're playing. Cool. The first one is from Activision. It's their Skylanders franchise. It's since 2011, when it debuted, it's made more than $2 billion in revenue for Activision, with more than 175 million toys sold. This is according to their most recent 10K. For contrast to that $2 billion since 2011, in all of 2013, Activision made $4.5 billion of revenue. So this is a big chunk of their earnings. Skylanders for 2013 was the #3 best-selling franchise in North America and Europe, and the two titles that they released over the course of that year were the #4 and #6 best-selling games in North America and Europe in terms of the dollars they brought in. But like most Activision has this problem. It'll break out these huge hit franchises like Call of Duty, like Guitar Hero, but it seems to have trouble keeping them fresh to the point where they start to run into the ground. And we may be starting to see that with Skylanders too. Skylanders revenue rose in 2012, but it fell in 2013, even though Activision spent more money marketing it. That's all I could find on Skylanders revenue. They don't really break it out on its own. One of the reasons that Skylanders revenue may have fallen is because late last year, in August of last year, Disney introduced Disney Infinity. It's the same concept as Skylanders, but with wonderful, fun characters from the worlds of, at least so far, Disney and Pixar. They're animated movies, they're live-action movies, they're Pixar movies. So you have this game where, you can buy a Wreck-It Ralph figure and plug him in, and then you can go play Sugar Crush Racing with Penelope von Schweetz. But once you're done playing in Ralph's little world, you can take Ralph and Penelope into what they call the Toy Box, this endlessly extensible, free-for-all space where you can then have Ralph and Mike Wazowski team up to fight the Omnibots from The Incredibles with the help of Captain Jack Sparrow riding a motorbike. So the system, I've heard that Disney Infinity had its share of glitches and everything, but it's doing really well for Disney. It drove better revenue at Disney's struggling interactive division in the most recent fiscal year. Just from its sales in Q4 alone, Disney Infinity increased Disney's console game revenues for all of 2013 by 25%. And even though Disney was spending more to sell Infinity and to develop Infinity, operating losses at Disney's interactive division for the whole year still shrank by nearly 60%. This is what I got from Polygon.com. From mid-August 2013 to January 2014, Disney sold 3 million Infinity starter packs. That's the game and 3 figures at $75 a piece. That's $225 million in revenue. And that doesn't even count the additional figures, who sell for $13 each, or the game-enhancing power discs, which give you new tools or new abilities, and they're sold in random $5 2-packs. Disney Infinity, even though it only came out in August of last year, it was the number 10 best-selling game in the US for 2013. And here's where Activision needs to start getting worried. In December, Disney Infinity sold 551,000 copies of its starter kit versus 597,000 copies of Activision's latest version of Skylanders. And in that quarter, just in that quarter alone, year over year, Disney Interactive, because of Infinity, went from a $76 million operating loss to a $16 million operating profit. This is not going to change the whole fortunes of Disney, but it is certainly making a difference at a division that at Disney was having a lot of trouble. I would argue that Disney Infinity is going to cause even more trouble for Activision by eroding Skylanders, which, with World of Warcraft on the decline, with Call of Duty on the decline, Skylanders becomes increasingly important, and if Disney Infinity takes share from that, Activision shareholders need to be worried, especially since Disney just released a teaser trailer for what they're calling Infinity 2.0. It's not clear whether that will be a new game or an upgrade to the existing one or what, but they're basically saying, hey, we're adding the Marvel superheroes to Disney Infinity. And they've already had a Jedi lightsaber as a secret item that you unlocked in the existing game, so you know Star Wars characters are coming. And when you can have Captain Jack Sparrow teaming up with Han Solo to rescue Mike Sullivan from the depths of Monsters University, I think that's going to be a powerful incentive for kids and adults to start buying more Disney Infinity and less of the original in-house characters that Activision created for Skylanders.
That was going to be my next question, actually, is that it sounds like there's clearly, in the screenshot that I showed of Skylanders, that it looks like kid stuff, but clearly there is a huge appetite among adults for this stuff, too. So, Tim, you got kids. Is this something they would like more than you? You would like more than them? Not sure yet?
I don't know. I mean, just a couple things here, because I can't add a lot to what Nato already said, but just a couple things to bear in mind. So, at San Diego last year, San Diego Comic-Con, this was a big reveal for Disney. They really hyped up Disney Infinity, and clearly for good reason. Secondarily, I think it's important to remember that the highest margin segment at Disney is consumer products, and it's not even close, because this is the division that licenses images, Disney images, and Disney-owned brands like Marvel and like Star Wars to other properties. So they make their way into games, and shirts, and all sorts of other goodies. So this is a very big deal. Yeah, I do think that there's a wide interest in Disney Infinity as a gaming platform, both for adults and kids. But Disney as a business is making a lot more strides in this area. Last year, Disney re-upped its deal with Hasbro. And if you don't know this, so I think it was 2010 when they signed their first deal with Hasbro to create figures for Marvel superheroes. Then last year, in order to align the contract after they had acquired Lucasfilm, they put both the contract for making Marvel superheroes figures and Star Wars figures and put them together and backed up the timing to 2020. So now Hasbro has those rights until 2020, and they're paying, I believe, a little more than $300 million for that. It's a huge amount of money. So you can see that I think there's a natural progression from what we have currently with Disney Infinity to more stuff, more toys plugging into Infinity, Infinity spawning more toys elsewhere. So this is the way Disney does it. It just continues to build an ecosystem and lets that ecosystem blossom, and then gets big, fat, 100% margin checks off of what they license to other people. It's a really wonderful business. Infinity has the capacity to sort of fit into that, portfolio of Disney products. So I think it has wide appeal, but I'm more interested in it for what it can do for Disney consumer products. It's just a fascinating part of the business that's going to continue to be a huge catalyst, I think.
If you are watching this show and you are not yet convinced that Disney/Marvel knows what they're doing,
we can't help you.
Well, we have one more segment that might actually change your mind. From here, we were going to talk about so there's going to be some spoilers, I think, in here, but the ending of the Winter Soldier had some direct effects on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. on the show, which is rapidly, I think, just getting better and better and becoming one of my favorites on TV, which I know even a couple weeks ago I was like, yeah, we catch up on it when we can, but it's just for leaps and bounds for us lately. So anyway, Tim, as the one who, I think you both saw the movie, but as the one who I know for sure saw it opening night, how spoilery do you want to get, and what does all this mean for S.H.I.E.L.D.?
Well, why don't we just give everybody a warning? So let's just say, if you do not want any spoilers, turn off the camera now.
Get off the internet. Just get off the internet.
Just get off the internet.
Go outside.
The spoilers are in the internet. Get out while you can.
Right.
Exactly.
All right. So now we've warned everybody. So let's get into spoilers. So the Winter Soldier reintroduces Hydra, which was introduced in Captain America: The First Avenger, and so they are revealed as the antagonists. They have infiltrated, and they have rise up to take over S.H.I.E.L.D., and it becomes a big mess. That's the political thriller part. You have two competing spy agencies that are fighting each other, with Captain America caught in the middle, and he's not sure who he can trust, and how far he can go. It becomes a very tense narrative as a result. And so the ending of that movie introduces the fact that there are still Hydra elements remaining, and you don't know what that's going to do to the agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And so,
importantly, they end the movie by dismantling S.H.I.E.L.D. So
right.
I guess they're going to rename the show Agents of ... Phil Coulson's Jet Gang. I don't know.
Yeah,
I would watch that show.
We don't know at this point, but yeah, it's essentially obliterated S.H.I.E.L.D. as we've seen it so far in the TV show. So I think that's really interesting. I think as word of mouth spreads about what happened, it will bring people into the show. The latest episode did not do well on a live plus same day ratings figure, but that's fairly typical for this show. Usually where Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. does its best is in live plus 7. Mm-hmm. And in that area they've been pretty good consistently for several weeks now, especially in the 18 to 49 demographic, which is key for advertisers. So I think this will help. But you know what? Mark Bernardin, who is a comic book writer who also has contributed a lot to the Hollywood Reporter over the years, made what I thought might be the most incisive point about all of this. I do think it's going to help. The Winter Soldier's going to help, but what he said was on Twitter that if they really wanted to help, one of the 2 end credit scenes in Winter Soldier could have referred back to the show. You know what? He's exactly right in my point of view. You could have taken the second end credit scene, and I won't spoil that, but that could have very easily fit at the end of the main picture, and then you could have used the second end credit scene to refer back to the agents or tease something on the show. And they haven't done that. The movies, this show tends to refer to the movies, and the movies, not yet at least, don't refer back.
Yeah, that was my impression. And I know you said this before as well, that the show is sort of, as long as it can be used to bolster interest in the movies, it's likely to keep hanging in there. But NATO, so same thought, different thought?
Yeah, I saw Captain America. I think this is huge for Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I loved the latest episode. It is, I think, the best episode of the series to date. It's the first episode since the pilot that really feels like a Joss Whedon show in terms of, holy cow, I did not see that twist coming. And they had like 3 different twists in the show. You know, they kind of suckered you. They had a first twist that you could sort of see coming, a second twist that was really hard to see coming, and then a third twist that you basically just could not possibly see coming, and that raises a ton of questions and makes the show more exciting. Yeah. This move, knocking S.H.I.E.L.D. off the board, it's a gutsy move, especially since the folks running the show knew from the beginning that this was going to happen. So all the complaints that people have had about the show up till now, in a lot of ways, the creators' hands were tied because they had to mark time. They had to do a more boring version of the show so that when everything, you know, all the pieces get knocked off the board, all of a sudden the show gets exciting, especially in contrast to what it was. It doesn't mean that the problems in the beginning of the season weren't real, but this solves a lot of them. All of a sudden, S.H.I.E.L.D. is no longer the fun police. You know, their job is not to say, hey, ordinary people, quit being awesome and having superpowers. Instead, they are fighting for their lives to protect people against a massive, well-organized evil threat. They're no longer what I call the overdogs. You know, they no longer are the best armed, you know, best funded, best equipped people in the room. You know, and finally we have a real big bad worthy villain. The whole they were teasing the organization Centipede, which felt like a cheap Hydra analog, and which we now know was part of Hydra. Right. It seems like they have all the pieces in place now to make Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. a much better, more exciting, more interesting show, and I'm looking forward to seeing that happen.
And I'll just say, let me just add very quickly here, the reason I think NATO's right that this was a very gutsy move, but I think in 2 ways. First of all, the Winter Soldier, and I guess I'll look for your comments on this. This is not a film that's easily digestible if you haven't seen another Marvel film. Like if you're coming in, I don't for the first time and you know nothing else. And let me finish the point here. I don't think it's perfectly. I don't think it's the kind of film that you get the most out of if you haven't seen another Marvel film before. I also think it's significantly enhanced by Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I'm not sure that Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. might be significantly enhanced. All the things that NATO and I just talked about, that should enhance the show from here. But up to this point, Thor: The Dark World didn't really enhance Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. that much. This should significantly enhance Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., but historically, the movies haven't done that for the show yet. This is the first opportunity to do that. But to this point, I have felt like every time I've brought my 9-year-old son to a Marvel film, it's self-contained and he can enjoy it. This one, because of the political intrigue and some of the moving parts, I don't think it's as self-contained for him. But he's seen a lot of the stuff with me, so it might not be as big a deal. But yeah, I mean, NATO, I'm sure you disagree here, so tell me why.
Well, for 2 reasons. First of all, the fact if it is less self-contained, then that is actually kind of an advantage, because Marvel knows that basically
I don't think it's a disadvantage. I think it's a smart and gutsy move. I'm just saying that's new.
Yeah. I would argue that I was surprised at the extent to which the movie surprisingly gracefully worked in all the backstory you'd need to know if you hadn't seen the first Captain America. If you'd only seen the Avengers and not the previous film, they do a great job of setting up Bucky, Sharon Carter, Howard Stark, the beginnings of S.H.I.E.L.D., the Howling Commandos, and they work that in there in a surprisingly graceful way. But even if it is harder to follow, and I can see your point of view on that, but I think the Avengers and its success has given Marvel the freedom to do that. It doesn't have to waste time.
Totally.
And it can build, and I would argue the Winter Soldier is richer because it has such larger ripple effects throughout the entire universe. Thor: The Dark World, its events are awesome and they have great potential for the future of Thor, but they don't really affect the larger Marvel universe.
Right.
Captain America affects everything. And
I totally agree.
And I think it helped that Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., that Cap's storyline was about S.H.I.E.L.D., so it directly applied to Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., unlike Thor: The Dark World, their crossover where they're basically just in London cleaning up garbage.
Right.
Yep.
And also, I felt like, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. actually takes place at the same time as Captain America,
right,
which is inspired. So it adds what's going on in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. even more drama because you know that right now Cap is out there fighting for his life. And when I was watching Captain America, The Winter Soldier, I'm thinking, oh man, right now as this is happening, Coulson and his team are on that plane. They're heading toward nowhere. I wonder what's happening to them right now.
Yeah, so, you're absolutely. This does. So yes, we agree. This is a game-changing film because it's much more intertwined than any other Marvel film. Here's the question for me as an investor, and it's an annoying question that's hitting in the back of my mind, but I keep thinking like, okay, this is really cool. What happens in Phase 3, and then Phase 4, and then Phase 5? Marvel just introduced the idea that continuity matters, which it does in the comics, and has never mattered in movies before. So now continuity matters. What's going to happen?
Well, they've got the movies planned out. Kevin Feige says he's got the movies planned out till 2028. So,
wow.
And one of the coolest nerd moments in Captain America: Winter Soldier is when a certain traitorous ex-S.H.I.E.L.D. agent reveals the name Stephen Strange. So the fact that they're having the guts to kind of branch out and toss these names out that only some people will know, I think it signifies a new confidence, and I think it makes. When you know that every movie affects every other movie, I think it makes each movie richer and more dynamic, and it also broadens the audience. Even if you really love the Iron Man movies, maybe you'll go see Thor because you figure there's something in Thor that'll call back to those movies, or will affect the next Iron Man movie you see, or will inform the next Avengers movie that you're also planning to see because, hey, Robert Downey Jr. is awesome as Tony Stark.
Yes.
It should work. It should totally work like that. I hope that it does. I'm an optimist about it, but I just the investor in me just worries that same dynamic is what sells crossover comics, and after a while, we've seen that it has had benefits to the comics market, but it has also exhausted readers in years past. I trust Feige to make this work, but it is an annoying question that sort of sticks in the back of my mind, especially as an investor here.
I'd just argue very quickly that what they're doing is less like the modern event-driven crossover where basically this story is forced on these existing titles. It's like, oh, you're going to crossover whether you like it or not. And here, let's stop all narrative momentum we were building up so that we can tell this arbitrary story after which nothing will ever be the same again for at least 6 months. This is more like what Marvel was doing in the early days of the Marvel Universe, where you would just have Spider-Man swinging by in the background of a panel of Fantastic Four going, oh man, I'd love to help those guys out, but I have my own problems. And there'd be like that little asterisk in the caption box. And
right.
To see what's going on with Spidey, check out Amazing Spider-Man number 16.
Right.
It's less of an imposition of we all have to tell the same story, and it's more that each character's story just ripples over into the background of the other characters' stories.
I hope it remains that way. History says it won't stay that way, but I hope it does.
I guess we'll find out.
Yeah.
And boy, won't it be terrible to see all those future Marvel movies and find out.
Yes, I too.
I'm really not looking forward to that at all.
So getting back to the main point then, Marvel takes all the money.
All the money.
Yeah, they
Check it
just
out.
moved Captain America. They just announced that Captain America 3 would be opening on the same date as Batman versus Superman. If I were Warner Brothers,
Oh
especially
my.
looking at Man of Steel, I would be crying under my desk in a fetal position right now.
Me too. I think
Oh,
it was a very bad move on Warner's part.
well,
Absolutely.
you guys have mentioned this before too, but the Batman versus Superman movie is sort of a hodgepodge right now. Like, it just seems like they're throwing everything at it. Whereas, from what you've said today and from what I've heard, Marvel really knows what they're doing with the next X number
It's very
14
and
years.
Kevin Feige is. I mean, I think um, if Marvel were still its own publicly traded stock, and we were, doing an analysis, and we were, sussing out Marvel's competitive advantages, somewhere in the bullet point list we would write Kevin Feige, because
Mhm.
he's just that good at, sussing out what Marvel needs to do. He's just been brilliant about it. He's studied the material. He's gamed it out very nice. He's working collaboratively with individual creators. He's just a very smart guy. And, Robert Iger at Disney is very smart to let the man do what he knows how to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, Disney has a wonderful hands-off management style. They've really let Pixar do their own thing. They're letting Marvel do their own thing. Hopefully they'll, well, it might not be a good thing to let Lucasfilm do its own thing.
Yeah.
But
Go back
yeah,
in time and let Lucasfilm do its own thing.
and that's a very Warren Buffett-like approach to investing. You buy
Yes.
great organizations and then you trust their management to make smart decisions.
You let them be great. It's the Kanye West philosophy. And
All right.
from there, nice segue, Ellen. Thank you. From there, let us wrap up by talking about, just for a couple minutes, about Game of Thrones. So the season premiere was just lately, and it blew up the internet. I don't think it crashed Twitter, but it came close. It did crash HBO's Go servers, which has happened before, and I think it set a ratings record. So,
It did.
Tim, I think you are the one of us who follows the show most closely. Where do you want to start?
I really like the show. The season 4 premiere was it set exactly the tone you want from Game of Thrones. It starts blowing things up. I don't want to, especially since you guys don't watch it, I don't want to dish on any spoilers here. But this is Game of Thrones as a series, both in the books and in the TV shows, is a constant series of acceleration, but with pacing. And so the season 4 premiere was like that. You get a bit more about. So we're showing Daenerys. Dany is she's already completely establishing herself as the force to be reckoned with. God help them once she gets to Westeros with dragons. She's on her way. She is the one in a a story about incredibly awful people. She's one of the few redeeming people, and even she has an awful streak. So it sets a bar of that. You don't know exactly just how awful it's going to get. All you know is that it's going to get horrific very, very soon. But in terms of this property for HBO, this is the second time we've seen a property crash HBO servers, and the last time it was True Detective, and the reason for this is HBO is not cracking down on password sharing, and I think they're very smart about this. They get a lot of flack for it, but from a business perspective, I think it's brilliant, and here's why. HBO knows, at least for right now, that the numbers don't add up to separate HBO Go from cable providers. They still get way too much money from cable providers. So what they need to do is figure out what is the demand? What can we project as the realistic demand for our stuff if we were to go out and make HBO standalone? And so piracy data is huge for them. It tells them what their potential addressable market is. Meanwhile, we know on iTunes, they will not sell the current season just like AMC does with The Walking Dead. But if you wanted to buy season 3 of Game of Thrones, it costs you $3.99 an episode, more than it cost you for a single episode of The Walking Dead. So HBO is charging a premium and getting it because it was the #1 property sold on the iTunes store heading into the season 4 premiere. So the overall ratings were, I believe, was 6.6 million live viewers. That was up well over 4.4 million in season 3. So this is just
52% more.
52% more. Thank you. So it's a huge bump There's a lot of interest in this property, and it comes at a good time because dramas are getting a little harder to come by, or at least they will get harder to come by at HBO. True Blood is ending. Boardwalk Empire is ending. They haven't signed many new dramas that I'm aware of. True Detective is an anthology, so that's still an unknown. Meanwhile, they seem to be doing very well with comedies, but in drama, where Netflix has been putting all its money and time, and AMC has been putting all its money and time, HBO has smartly, I think, shifted a bit into comedy and done very well with it with Veep and now the new Silicon Valley. But they do need to get a signature drama property in there. We're going to get 2 more seasons of Game of Thrones for sure after the premiere. They did announce that they will sign up for seasons 5 and 6. So George R.R. Martin needs to write much faster. But, I mean, this looks like it's going to be around for quite some time. And I think that's good for Warner investors, frankly.
Yeah, poor George R.R. Martin. I saw a story, I can't remember where, about how people are seeing themselves far more as consumers of his product with Game of Thrones and not as like aficionados of his craft. So when there's not enough, story, and they want story right now, they're sort of like, this is what I pay you for. Why are you holding out on me? But he seems like a hoot. Anyway, Nathan, what is HBO doing right?
Well, I think that it's possible that part of this ratings bump came from people sampling the show on HBO Go and saying, hey, I like this. And basically this is beautiful. People are like, well, why doesn't HBO show its shows on Netflix that expand its audience? HBO is already doing this. It has its own Netflix just for HBO properties. It doesn't have to play with anybody else. And if it looks the other way when somebody shares a password, oh well, eventually maybe some of those people get money and are like, you know what, I'm going to pay and watch it right away. And it's not exactly in HBO's best interest. They say they're upgrading the servers for HBO Go, but it's not exactly in their best interest to do so when they know that, a lot of the people watching HBO Go are not doing so as paying subscribers. I am a paying subscriber. I watch only through HBO Go. I don't even have a cable box. Shh, don't tell Comcast. But
they don't watch our show. We've turned them off a long time ago.
Yeah, HBO Go is definitely HBO's future. That is where it's headed in the long run. But for right now, they can't afford to piss off the cable companies. For one thing, HBO is just one of the channels that Warner Brothers has. It's also got TNT and a bunch of other, cable channels, and it sells them kind of as like a package to cable companies. And second of all, cable companies provide a lot of the marketing and the service infrastructure for HBO. HBO would have to shoulder all those costs itself, and if it did make HBO Go standalone, it would have to pay all of the server costs and the extra infrastructure to build that out. So for right now, it's kind of smart to walk that middle line.
All right. And I think that we have ended on just the right note today. So I am going to wrap this up. This has been One Up on Wall Street. This is the Motley Fool show where we show you how awesome and charming it is to be a total nerd. Let me just flash on these guys so that you can have visual proof of that. And also, it can be very lucrative. So if you want to learn to start investing with us, you can download our free report, which teaches you how to start investing with us. And also you can email us at startinvesting@fool.com. We also have a Twitter feed for this show. It is at One Up on Wall Street, the numeral 1.
It's actually at TMF numeral 1 up.
Nathan runs it, so Nathan's the one that you need to be nice to. But we would love it if you would holler at us there, if you would comment on these videos, anything that you would like to see on the show that you agree with or disagree with, we would love to hear about. So for Mr. Tim Beyers and his Avengers t-shirt, and Nathan Alderman and Kermit the Frog.
Adios.
I am Ellen Bowman, and we will see you next week. Full on.